If you've been following our channel for quite some time, I can guarantee that today's episode is something you've never seen before here. I'm Faith Barrett, your local guide to everything here in Reading, and today I decided to create a little bit more of a special episode because we have a very hot topic here in our area, which is Measure 8. And if you're not familiar with that, that is an increased proposed sales tax, raising it from 7.25% in our area to 8.25%. We've had a lot of controversy, and I've done an episode before on this, and truthfully, I don't know all sides of this proposal. So instead of me sharing again about this proposal, I have brought in two candidates who will be debating between themselves why or why not you should consider voting for or against this Measure A. Now, I will say if you are a local citizen here, just keep an open mind. Try to see if you can learn something from this debate, as well as if you don't agree, respectfully disagree, but we can all still be kind about it. So let's get this debate started. So I'm very excited to be sitting in front of you guys, very well-respected leaders in our area. And before kind of starting into this introduction of, what is Measure A? Why is it such attention here in our area? It feels like, you read somebody's post and you have this divisive thought about why it shouldn't be passed. And then you have this very positive thought of why it should be passed. Instead of trying to articulate a message that I probably don't have all aspects covered, I wanted to actually create a little bit of this debating forum so that somebody who may be on the fence, has no idea, could educate themselves, come next Tuesday as to what they want to do. So before kind of breaking into Measure A, I thought it'd be good for the audience who obviously may not know you, kind of give a little bit of a brief history of how you've been involved in Reading. So ladies first.
Sure. So I have been in Reading for about 12 years. So anybody, looking to relocate, this is a great place to do that. You're 10 minutes from everything. You can work, you can pick your kids up from school, drop them off, and coach their little league team if you want, because it just affords you the time to do that. So I started working on the political side. My degree is in political science. I worked in business right out of college for Black & Decker owned DeWalt Power Tools. I worked for them and stayed home with my kids for 10 years. And when I was here, all my kids got to school, and I started working sort of in that political realm and ran campaigns for 10 years. Also worked in our state Senate for 6 years, and taught government, taught the Constitution, and in 2022 decided to run for city council. And so I am currently on the city council. I'm the past mayor. I sit on the board of directors for the Shasta Regional Transportation Agency. I'm also on the board of California Council of Governments. I'm also the liaison with our Public Works Department, and have been a liaison for police, for fire, and so have sort of been in all aspects of city government, but also have quite a bit of extensive experience in state government as well.
Very simple.
I'm also the mother of 3. Yeah. So I've got a 20-year-old and 2 teenagers. So yeah.
I am a real estate agent. Ended my resume. Very impressive. All right, Josh. So
Yeah.
I'm
like, I gotta add some things real quick. Hold on.
softball coach. Anyway,
Yeah.
give us a little bit of history, your involvement,
Yeah.
here in Reading.
Yeah, well, similar to Tenessa, I moved here about a decade ago with my family. I had kids. All my daughters were 9 and under, and fell in love with Reading. I'm originally from Southern California, but we moved here from Ohio and visited, fell in love with the city, really loved the people, and that it was a big enough city to kind of have some modern conveniences, close to all the outdoors that we wanted to live at, but it's also small enough where you can run into your friends on a daily basis, which is just like that perfect vibe that we wanted to raise our kids in a place like that. And just the kind of people that were here were dreaming, kind of figuring out how to grow the city, and we wanted to run alongside those kind of people. So we just got plugged in. I'm involved in a lot of real estate. I am a real estate agent as well, but that's more kind of led me into development and construction, which was really my heart to, like, my dream to kind of get involved in Reading and, just put my little fingerprint on a few things here and there throughout the city. I now get to do that through the Good News Rescue Mission and a lot of projects in social services right now. But I got, I'm also a government, major, always been interested in it, so I kind of can't stay out of it. I really like problem solving in that realm, and got to work with Tenessa on city council for 5 months when a council member retired, on planning commission, real involved in a lot of maps that get created in the city and projects like that, and from ground up. And, that's really kind of keeps me on the civic side really engaged, because there's a lot of overlap, a lot of red tape. You have to, to do something in construction or, in development, you have to know how to work with government and be patient with the process, but also try and nudge it along. And so, just it's been really fun to in 10 years see so much progress here, but also know, there's what's the next version of Reading going to look like. And my kids are now a little bit older and thinking about grandkids and looking ahead into the future. It's a different lens that I'm looking through now.
Yeah. Well, below the introductions, the goal for those that are watching is to kind of give a framework to what Measure A is. Currently, you'll kind of hear different positions. Josh is very for passing Measure A. Tenessa has been, an advocate for not passing Measure A. The goal is to really just go through the structure, the history of sales tax here in Reading, how it kind of failed as a city in multiple ways of trying to raise our sales tax. Also just kind of what residents should be aware of in this Measure A if it's passed, how it will affect them. And then at the end of the day, I've probably read so many Facebook posts about just pros, cons, and everything, but I really want to know at the end of the day, future, tomorrow or next week, November 5th, it passes or it doesn't. What does Reading look like 1 year from now? In that shape or form, because this is a place that we love to call home. It's a place that's growing, developing, and we obviously as a small city have our own pains, and kind of just the future of it. So to start off it, Josh, for those who may not be familiar, can you briefly explain what Measure A proposes for Reading, what specific goals or community needs it's intended to address, and why you believe residents should support it?
Yeah.
60 seconds are on the clock.
All right, let's go. I love that.
I had to say that.
Yes. That's what we're used to when we're running for office. It's you get 60 seconds to solve the problem of homelessness.
You got 30 minutes, but like 10.
Yeah. That's good. No, so Measure A, basically what it is, it's a citizen-led tax initiative, which means the only thing that means is in the past we've tried this, that we're either county-led or city-led. So it required a much higher threshold to pass, and we've never passed it before. I've supported some of those measures were more public safety related. Some of them had some other emphasis, but this one is citizen led. So the threshold's 50% plus one. So if that means 50% and then one voter, it could pass on that thin a margin. So this is more kind of taking some of the learnings of the past and what we heard, why it failed. Some of it was related to the fact that it was a general fund tax before, and then all the funds would just go to the general fund and city council would decide how to spend all of it. This one we wanted to make specific. So, we had to write allocation, the ordinance with an allocation or distribution schedule that kind of showed these are the categories we wanted to go to. And so number one, as we did the needs analysis and the committee, talked around the community, we met with the sheriff's office. We put in money there for their facility to reduce repeat offenders, which will be a work program that is the intent and use of those funds. 12% goes to the sheriff's office for operations of that ongoing. They have funding for the infrastructure, and there is a lease agreement that was signed by the city in September for moving that project along. And then there's the police department, I believe is another 12% for new officers, equipment, and things. Every time you have an officer, you have equipment as well. So we have that in there. We have 13% for fire, 3.5% of which is wildfire mitigation ongoing. Right now, we're having to get grants, and you don't know when those are going to run out. But guess what's not going to run out? Fire fuels on our west side. So we've got to, this is to kind of have that go ongoing for the perpetuity of the city. And then from there, we have the Northern Riverfront, and the amount of people that came out to City Council in the last few years in support of whether it's the rodeo grounds and events down there, or civic, or related to the Northern Riverfront, or the specific plan, the Riverfront specific plan, and how all that ties together. has been enormous, the amount of engagement that's been there. Big League Dreams and different parks. So there's another 9% for various parks that are currently operating. So some being like the South City Park, which has gap funding to be able to get that project finished. They got some funding from the state, but there's a couple of parks that, like the Panorama Park off of Lake, they need gap funds to get that resiliency center built, which also has indoor recreation types of options for kids. So we have some of that included. But the thing in the past that's happened in Reading, unfortunately, is that we've built some parks and some things without ongoing maintenance and operations baked into the budget. So we wanted to make sure that all of these items, whether it's infrastructure projects, like 30% is going to roads. That's a huge chunk and ongoing to help us make up the difference between gas tax and our low population, which is what gas tax is based on and distributed to the cities, to be able to make up for that and then make up for $100 million in backlog of road improvements and facilities related to roads. So like sidewalk, curb and gutter and things like that. So that's kind of it in a nutshell why I think, people should vote for it. I hate taxes. But if I'm going to be taxed anywhere, local is more palatable to me. I'm raising my kids here. This is where I want to see the city thrive. I think there's a lot of, this does not solve all the problems at the city. I think city council members are still going to have to make tough decisions. They still need to be prudent. They need to be wise with the resources. Hopefully they're able to be so successful that we could reduce this tax in the future if things change at the state level or here at the city level with the way in which we're the head count or other types of ways in which we're managing and maintaining things long term. But right now, this is what I believe we need to stay relevant, competitive from an economic standpoint, and to be the city that you want to raise your kids in and that they want to come back to.
Yeah. And so for those who are watching, basically that proposed is Reading sales tax is going from 7.25 to 8.25 if this was to pass.
Yes.
Okay. So based on what some would appear reading that and feeling like it's positive and, pro moving forward the city in what gaps and things that we can visually see with our own eye. You've been kind of an advocate, Tenessa, for not wanting to move this measure forward right now. So can you help kind of explain maybe for your perspective of it for those that may not know it already?
Yeah, I think, thank you for having me here. I have a different perspective. Sort of you've set this up as the positive thing is the tax and the negative thing is the being against it. And I would say, I think that we wear it as a badge of honor that we haven't grown our government so big that we actually are onerous to our tax base. And so I actually think it's one thing that attracts people to Reading is that it has such a low sales tax. And that we've really held our government accountable to living within its means. I think that's actually one of the things if you're going to stay in California, this may be like your last bastion of place where you can afford to buy a house. You don't have, hours and hours that you're spending in traffic. And we have kept our sales tax low. I actually think that's something to be really proud of. And I don't, if I thought the only way to, for Reading to move forward and to have all the things that we need and want was to have a sales tax to increase that, I would be all for it. But I don't think that's what's happening. And I think had our management and council managed the increase of funds that came in during COVID really well, we wouldn't be asking citizens to pick up a sales tax because our city manager had been shopping this citizen-led sales tax for over a year, knowing that the budget was only going to get worse and hoping that the economy would catch up to the decisions that they made, but it didn't. And so it became, a real desperation around, we're going to have to do this. And I think what you feel from the proponents of the measure is this desperation that you're going to have to do this in order for us to have cops, to have fire, to prevent these things. And I just don't see the panic from that side. I don't think that we're in a panic. I think we need to take a deep breath. I think we need to look at the budget as it is right now and make some necessary cuts to reduce the size of our government. It just doesn't match where we are. We made some decisions in 2021 and 2022 that assumed we were just going to have exponential growth for the next 10 years, which is just not true. We have had growth, but we just haven't had it at the rate at which they predicted we would have.
Right.
And so I think we need to sort of right size. They also added many positions. And so as a whole in a city, I don't think that we need to add another 50 or 60 employees. I think we actually have to have less employees. And I think we need to, if we want to do specific things, for instance, you guys mentioned streets, you know, anytime we're talking about infrastructure, that is the responsibility of government. And I also think that things can be done to that end. So if you wanted to do a dedicated sales tax as like a last ditch effort to get streets back up to where they need to be, I think it's reasonable to say a 25-cent increase only for 10 years to get us to that place that,
Like put a clause on it.
yeah, have a sunset, because really, if we're really trying to get up to speed. But the other option that we have not taken advantage of is the fact that right now, currently, we get $12 million every year in both gas tax and allocation funds from federal and the state to put towards streets. And about $2.5 million of that goes to administration. So we have about roughly $9 million to put towards streets. And currently 7 of that goes to projects, whereas about 2 to 3 is going to go to actually just paving the streets. And so by that, I mean the roundabouts that we have, the bike lanes that we have, we're going after grants to do these big projects, and we have to have matching funds. And so we sort of put in some to get some. And what you hear from the public is those are not the priorities that we want. We actually want you to do just paving the streets. And so an option would be, at least for the next 4 years, while the economy is in this influx, just dedicate that to do street paving. So we could take our $9 million that we currently have, that we get no increase to anybody. I mean, our gas tax is massive, right? Take that and just start paving streets for 4 years, and don't do any matching funds, and don't do any big projects. That is also an option of what we could do without going to taxes. And so my largest objection to the tax is that we just really haven't done the work in the city. We made decisions in 22. They grew raises. Our personnel costs have been raised by 38%. We did not reduce that in any significant way, or in any way that you can see on paper that you're actually going to move forward with a reduced cost of government. And so because we haven't done that, I think that's the first step. I'm not going to ask you for more money if I haven't tightened my belt into what I need to do to make sure that government is running efficiently. This vision that they had in 2022 does not match the reality of 2025. And I think if we do that, then we can have a thoughtful conversation of, if we want better infrastructure, how much would that cost? What would we be paying? And then how do we see that in return?
Yeah.
Because if you look at the allocations, the promises that have been made do not match the amounts that they're going to get. I'm not going to get a new fire station, renovating all my fire stations and 13 more firefighters for $3 million more per year. That's just not going to happen. It's only a 13% increase. So I'm not going to grow by 20 and 30% in my fire department with only a 13% increase to my overall budget for the fire department. I'm not going to get 20 more cops when I'm only increasing the police department's budget by 8% as a whole. So it just, the allocations don't match the dream and the vision that's being presented. And so really what I'm saying is, it sounds great. It sounds like we're going to get more stuff, but we have major budget problems. That's the only crisis we have, is that we have a budget problem. They're hoping that the tax passes and it fixes that budget problem. And I'm saying that the people of Reading need to be aware, you're fixing my budget. You're not getting 20 extra cops. You're not going to get every street paved with gold. You're not going to get, you're not going to get all of these other things. Really what you're going to get is a bigger bill and not all the stuff you've been promised. And so that's the conversation I want to have, is just eyes wide open, know what you're getting. Because if you're going to commit forever another 1%, just know what it is that you should anticipate getting.
Right.
I do have,
Yeah.
would love to just, yes. Well, I just want to respond to a couple of things. Like one, I'm not sure what other people are saying out there. The measure is pretty clear on what it says it has to go to, and the city council doesn't actually get a choice on what to do with those funds. They're restricted. So you can't, no matter who's on there, like if you're on there in 2 years, like, or not, whoever's there, it is restricted, similar to gas tax. It has to be spent on those things. And I believe that the amount of money, it doesn't say the number of officers, but I think the amount was about 12 officers. I think it's going to somewhere around there, between 10 and 12. So I did not get excited about this because of a budget deficit. You can correct a budget deficit with cuts and attrition and all the things that you're doing. I am not doing this for a budget deficit. I wouldn't vote for this just to plug a hole. I do believe that there's some parts of it that is hole plugging. I think more on the parks side, but I do believe this is more about much bigger than what you can shave $5 million and what you could do with that. This is $30 million a year, and it's going to a lot of different projects. That is the next generation. So if you think about what happened in the 70s, the building and a lot of the Northern Riverfront development with the Civic and things like that, or you think about, Fire Station 9, and some of the need down there, what's happened, what we put in there for the Reading Airport, and the drain that is on general fund every year, but it's also a huge economic driver. It's about $500,000 a year of, I know the money moves around, but we have a fire department sitting out there waiting for a fire that we pay for a truck and a firefighter and around the clock per FAA. And there are costs, but also we have a potential to attract more airlines if we can expand the terminal, expand development down there. So there are some things that the community, it's bigger than just a budget deficit. It's vision for the future. I hope that we can still figure out ways to make those cuts in other ways where we say, hey, we can do this better. We can operate Big League Dreams better with an RFP. We could do, those things still need to occur, but how are you going to pay for new turf?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll just respond to that. Nobody is going to argue all of the vision and the dreams of things we want for Reading. It's how are you going to pay for them and at what cost? And so if you do have a budget deficit, and while they can say that it goes to the police department, the language was not put into the bill that it can't supplant the current budget. So if my budget for the police is $42 million a year and I get an extra $4, I can keep my budget at $42 million a year. And while I've put that $4 million into police, I can move around the other 42, I can move that somewhere else. So there really isn't, the language is not in there that says all of this money has to go to new spending.
Well,
it can supplant the budget.
The city of Del Mar and Santa Rosa also had that similar citizen-led tax initiatives that the city council members like Tenessa could actually put into their council policy to not supplant public safety dollars that come in from the new tax. So they can write it into their policy, which then would require a 4/5 vote to change.
Until a new council comes in and they can change that. So it doesn't give any guarantee to the citizens. And what I have seen just with this current council is that it doesn't matter how much of an argument or how much evidence that you can show them that something is amiss. If this is what they want to do, they're going to do it. And there's nothing to force them to do anything different. And so this idea of give me more money and get more stuff, I think is the attitude that has gotten us into the budget deficit that we're in. And since none of those bad decisions have been looked at, evaluated, and adjustments made, there's really nothing to keep you from another bad decision coming. And now it's just more of your money to do it. So is Reading going to benefit from $30 million more going to the general fund? Maybe, but this only actually allocates about 16 million of that 30. And so as a council member, when people say to me, oh, but I want 30 million more for streets and I want 30 million more for my parks and I want 30 million, you're like, well, we're really talking about 16 million because streets is a separate account. Airports is a separate account. That's not under the general fund. It's not general fund dollars. It's specific dollars. And neither is the sheriff's project. None of that is the general fund. So of this 30, you're really talking about 16. It's an increase of 16 million. And as we know, the deficit is between 5 and 8 million. So you're really going to get about another $8 million more of spending. And is the 1% enough that you feel like that 8% is going to do the job and get you all this extra stuff that you want? On top of the fact that we've just seen over and over, when the city gets money, they give raises, and all of the people expect to get raises. And so there hasn't been a slowdown of requests. the citywide, they got raises of between 20, 30, and 40% over the last 4 years. And every single unit that's come back to us is still asking for more money. That hasn't slowed down. Most of the contracts right now are at impasse because they're going to wait, do fact finding because they want to see if the sales tax measure passes, and they're immediately going to want an increase to their pay. And so there isn't, I don't think, enough understanding of these really, we're talking about big numbers here. And you've heard it from the council themselves, like, I don't really understand the budget, and I'm just waiting for them to tell me what I'm supposed to do. And you have staff that is going to benefit financially from saying, just, go ahead, pass that. Yes, get that increase.
Like Measure A had more of like significant clauses for what the money was going to be allocated towards. It'd be more of a protection from a citizen standpoint of like
raises and pensions. Yes.
More so like 12 officers, if that was like, written out, more allocated, which actually brings me to my...
Well, who
so
says
plant language doesn't mean that you won't have raises and pensions, though.
So who said we need 12? See, that's the other problem, is that if nobody's asking, the council or the police department.
It's a citizen-led tax initiative. We can't talk to you.
Of course you can.
No,
you have talked to me.
No,
of course you can.
What I mean is that this can't be from you guys.
Of course it can. You talk to every one of us. Of course you can.
But what I'm saying is you can't direct it.
And the city manager himself told me that he directed much of language that was going towards that. So that's not actually true. Of course, everybody can have this discussion and talk about it, and finding out better information, even from the police chief, of how many more do you think Reading actually needs? Like, it's not an umpteen amount. We don't need 130, 140, 150 cops. Like, there's a number that we've gone up, we've come down. What do we think is a good number for the size of city that we are?
For this measure, we did talk to every single one of those departments, talk to the police chief, the fire chief, every single thing that's allocated, talk to the sheriff. Umpteen number of hours were put into all the numbers, and then ongoing and costs, especially for the infrastructure projects, trying to figure out where things are. Now, inflation is another big factor. A lot of things have changed, in the last 7 years. And inflation has a big impact on the cost of improvements. So, for instance, if you do the plan that that Councilmember Audette is proposing with $9 million going all to pavement, which would be patchwork and Band-Aids, down the road it would be, because you can't actually with that $9 million make the type of new pavement. A lot of stuff, like even the Bocelli, you know how nice that looks right now? That's more of a Band-Aid on top. It's not an actual, the sidewalk curb and gutter is new. That's going to be nice for a long time. But the actual road was not taken down to where it should be, shaved down probably 6, 8, 9 inches. It was taken down half of that. And what happens is a crown starts to form. You ever been on those streets? So we're doing a lot of patchwork to try and make up for it, and it looks really nice for a couple of years, but we're not making the improvements that we need to, and that's why our score is a 49 out of 100.
For some roads.
For some roads.
For some.
And yeah, so we're red on the map,
right.
On the state map.
The question that actually will go into this, which was kind of round 2, was the structure, which we kind of like already dipped into about, residents are really worried about salaries, this will end up covering city salaries or filling budget gaps instead of the public services promise. To kind of blend both questions together, because I think you've already talked a little bit about it, this being a citizen-led kind of tax initiative. This has been saying that Measure A calls for a citizen advisory committee and independent audits. In your view, which truthfully, as a resident, I don't know who those people are on the committee. I've kind of read some comments saying like, if the bill hasn't passed yet, there's not like actually a committee yet designated. You could correct me if I'm wrong.
No, that's true.
But I guess like for me as like a citizen, and this is just more of a question, is if it is a citizen led, like how are those people, voted into that role? Like what realms did they kind of, live by to help initiate and audit and check that this, measure is going to where they are supposed to be spending it? And, is there or do you foresee that there should be additional oversight? Like, let's just say Measure A gets passed and it is quote unquote citizen led. I guess, how do you feel like the structure of it overall to make sure that the allocation of the funds are actually going where they're supposed to be going? We ended with you. We'll go to you.
Yeah, I don't have, so I don't know what the criteria to choose. I know that You've had all of the people that will financially benefit from the citizen-led. I think you maybe have like 50 donors, and I think 20 of them are actually citizens, and most of them are affiliated with all the organizations that have donated that will directly benefit from the sales tax measure. So citizen-led is a loosely held term. This wasn't a grassroots. This isn't a bunch of people. This is a bunch of organizations that have something to gain from it. And so first off, in the language, they said, somebody like us, somebody like the chamber who's 100% involved in supporting it, and their board members are all donors. And so, and I'm part of those organizations. And so they put some of those organizations in their list. Now, that doesn't mean that that's what the citizen group is going to be. Likely, the council members will pick somebody to be on that. And, my guess is that it's not the citizens that pick the citizens for it. It's the council that picks the citizens for it. So when you have 4 of them supporting the sales tax measure to one of me who's not, what are you going to get? You don't know what you're going to get. You may just get those same organizations will have a seat at the table. So it's hard. There's no rule against that. There's no rule that Advance Reading or the Chamber or the Rodeo Association doesn't get a seat at that table to make sure the funds are used for those things. It's not. That was their suggestion in the measure or on the website. And so I don't know what that criteria is. I am only one person that gets to talk about that. And the rest have all taken their positions publicly, supporting what's happening. So I don't worry. The allocations are the allocations. The issue is not that 12% doesn't go to cops. It's that 12% goes to cops and 12% gets taken out of the current budget for cops and goes somewhere else.
Will you do that, though? Will you do that? Will you
I
vote
wouldn't
that way?
do that at all, but I also know...
Because I trust you. I voted for you.
So I also know all the places where we need it not at officers. They need new technology.
Right, which is in there.
And the new technology would cost $20 million. But I don't know that the other council members, now that they've made promises of 20 officers, are going to go and actually pay for the technology that would help us to need less officers. So I'm more for innovating and really looking at these things. And oftentimes what happens is that isn't the conversation that happens. We talk about numbers as opposed to really good solutions.
Yeah,
and if you give them more money, I don't think you're going to get smart solutions. I think you're just going to get more I'm already there arguing, and it hasn't happened. I wrote 150 pages to explain it. Nobody cares. I think you're going to get really good
at presenting to your fellow council members to get them to vote with you.
You would hope.
I think you are. You're going to get stronger at it.
But it doesn't sell. What sells is you're going to get 20 new officers. What doesn't sell is, no, I probably need 5, and I need better technology, which is not sexy to say I want new radios for $20 million. It's I want 20 officers. And we all know, and we don't need another.
And we as citizens, what we want is just more public safety. We want to be safe. We've seen a lot of attrition, and I think that's our intent is we want to see that the citizen committee. No, it won't be who started this whole thing.
So if some of the organizations are on the committee, advisory board or whatever, and they're supposed to audit and make sure the allocation goes to the funds. Obviously, we can all agree that 12% or whatever will go to certain designations. Do they get to decide and see where the money is being spent to that 12%? Or
there is an audit every year. So citizen committees that are in other jurisdictions, they are there as an advisory role. So similar to a planning commission, they don't have teeth, but they have political will, and also they will be auditing annually. This group also, when there is a project that's completed with the funds, and now there's excess funds in a category, they make recommendations to council on within the same category what other projects there might be. Now, council can decide to override them. There would be a political discussion about that. That would be in the news. It would be part of the thing because it's going to be part of, just like everything gets in the news now. I mean, it's very lively, and not a lot gets missed. I mean, it's out there, the things that happen in their meetings.
I would argue a lot gets missed, but let's just take parks, for example. This measure would increase the Parks Department by 63%. It would take their budget from around $8.5 to $14.5 million. And we all know that the biggest complaint we have about our parks is that we don't maintain them. We just keep building new ones. And everybody wants something new. Nobody's going to argue that we don't want a new park in South City, that we don't want a new park in Panorama. That sounds awesome. I want something bigger and better and fantastic. But then you have stuff like the soccer park and the Big League Dreams, and you have Caldwell Park. You have all these things that you're like, well, you also have to maintain what we have. And so there's just this tension between, do you build new stuff or do you take care of your old stuff? And on the river trail, if you've been out there and you've tried to go to the bathroom and you're like, this is not good. Like, we actually should be maintaining the things that we have. And so if you both simultaneously promise all this gap, all of these new things, but you're not currently able to have what you have and maintain it, then the budget either goes to maintaining that or it goes to something new. And if you have some budget there, the temptation always is, well, there's so much. There certainly is enough to do another big thing. And this is just a mindset issue. And unfortunately, with the city council that we have currently and what we've had in the past, is we don't have people that actually do a lot of the work and that dig into these things to figure out if they can understand them, and two, if we can afford them. It's
disagree.
Always yes.
So I don't disagree actually on this point. That is why.
As an example.
Parks as an example, I do think that there can be some who can make a case for, are we overparked? I think it's a conversation. Let's have it as a community. Most of this measure, if you look at the list of parks, are going to current parks to fund operations that we didn't otherwise have funds for in the past. So I agree. That is where I think this is plugging a bit of a hole. And every single infrastructure project that is being built, if you saw the spreadsheet, there was an infrastructure line on them and an operations line on them ongoing. What is it going to cost to maintain this ongoing? Knowing what we know now about inflation, about costs of maintaining HVAC systems and all the things, right? Like everything that happens, we put that in every single one of those line items so that we don't get ourselves in this position again. What I hope is that if Tenessa gets elected again, or whoever gets elected in city council, is that they won't say yes to a grant in the future that they can't maintain going forward, so we don't put our citizens in this position again. But we don't want to lose these parks that people now have become accustomed to using and that are so critical to little leagues and various types of programs that we're doing with recreation and just everyday life and quality of life, which I think are really important. I totally agree. We need to maintain what we have.
Then I think you should probably sell this measure as a parks measure, because you're increasing the budget of parks by 63%. You're increasing police by 8%. So this is not a police and fire bill. This is a parks bill. And you should call it for what it is.
But let's say this. This is what we can do.
You're trying to save all these poorly managed, poorly modeled parks that you have that are run by other people. And so you're trying to save them and have stopgaps for that. And that's fine, but argue that.
Okay, well, let's say this. So Parks has one of the lowest budgets. So when you say a percentage of a budget increase, they have one of the lowest budgets in general fund compared to police and fire. So when we say percentage-wise, I understand that. That is, but
also
it's 9% of the total.
Safety pensions are higher because they risk their lives every day.
Totally get that.
So the reason that they cost more is because, number one, we only basically have 3.5 categories for the general fund: police, fire, parks, and general government.
But this is why we didn't put no supplant.
Of course it's 80%, because...
But this is why we didn't put no supplant language in there, is that Parks goes and gets grants a lot of times for maintenance and improvements, like, from time to time. They're able to win those grants. If we put that no supplant or a maintenance of effort on parks, that would mean that every park dollar would have to be additional, even if they get grants to take care of things that could be in there.
But you could have done it for police and fire.
Yes.
And you didn't.
I agree. I totally agree. And that's what you guys can do. I do believe that city council
temporarily.
Can do this.
You can't do that permanently. You can do it temporarily. And that's the point, is that right now what we're seeing is this council does not listen to reason, does not listen to facts, does not listen to information, keeps shutting that down. And you right now have a 4/5. You have it right now. 4/5 unreasonable, unnecessary, and unwilling.
There is a posture to, and I believe a general consensus that a police and fire maintenance of effort would be on the table if this passes.
So this actually brings me to the next question, is that if we actually look at the history of Reading sales tax, correct me if I'm wrong, a little bit of late scrolling last night. So correct me if I'm wrong, 2014, 2020. Anyway, there's been multiple measures of some sort of increase in sales tax to go to police funds and all have failed. And even been smaller fraction of what is being on the table right now, a quarter to even 0.5%. And if we look at Anderson, a neighboring city, and we look at Red Bluff, their sales tax is Anderson is 7.75 and Red Bluff is 7.5. And then Reading, being a larger city, is, a little over 92,000 population, is at 7.25. So I guess the question is, it feels like as a city, have proposed before sales tax to go specifically to, police, or maybe it feels like this measures for parks or whatever. But it just doesn't seem like Reading can ever get behind they see the word tax and they're just like immediately no. Mm-hmm. But in 2014, Anderson was able to pass a sales tax, and now it's been at 7.75. So I guess that was actually very interesting for me to see. I truthfully didn't know that there was such a, difference. And if you look at it, we're arguing between 0.5% and a full percent between Anderson. And some people say, oh, well, I'll just go to, Anderson now to shop instead of Reading, which seems a little silly to me if that is kind of like the driving force and principality of it. So I guess would be the question is, with this new sales tax proposed and the history of failed measures before, let me get to my question so I don't mess it up. With the failed measures before, what you think has changed, if anything, in our city needs or priorities since these earlier measures? And why do you believe Measure A for your side won't be successful where past efforts failed?
So I think that nobody's going to say that Anderson is not more conservative than Reading. So I think what we really need to look at is, why is it that the people of Reading keep rejecting the government taking more money from them? Why do they keep rejecting that? And I think largely they're rejecting that because they know the people that are there, and they're paying attention enough to say, well, have you done what you need to do before you're going to ask us for more? And do we think that that's necessary? It's a report card on the city and its management. And what you have found over and over again is the people have said, no, we don't think you need it. We actually think you need to do a better job with what you have. And Anderson made that decision for their police to add that money for police. And that's fine. They just borrowed money from the county to stay afloat because they're out of cash. Mm-hmm. And so that's not really the great example to me. It means they didn't manage their money well. They wanted more money for public safety. They were able to get away with getting more money for public safety, which would have added more money for other things in their city. But they didn't do that either. And I think that's always the danger, is that if you just put more money at it, it doesn't solve the problem. If we have spending problems, then we have spending problems. We have to cut our spending. We don't have a revenue problem. If you look at the last 5 years, we only had 1 year where we were down at all in our revenue. Year over year, we've had an increase of revenue. In 2023, we were down $900,000. But if you look at our actual overall fund, our general fund, we have been under. So we are spending more. We're not getting less revenue. We're actually just overspending. And so if you have a spending problem, then what the public is asking for is you cut your spending. But what a sales tax does is actually, not only does it not cut your spending, it actually increases your spending, and it only delays the inevitable that eventually you'll run out of that money as well.
If I believed that I thought City Council could find $30 million through amazing cuts, they find it. The only way that I would not get behind a Measure A and wait for that is if we had a charter and a strong mayor. If we had a charter and a strong mayor, I know in one election they can turn things around and we can hold that person accountable. We don't have the ability with our structure to see that kind of change that quickly, and I don't have time. I'm raising kids now. I have people that I won't even see that, and my great-grandchildren won't even see that. The amount of time it would take for them to fix all of those problems is just too long.
I disagree. So I fundamentally disagree.
We haven't seen the history of that. You even pointed out that we haven't seen it.
I also disagree with the premise that we need to find $30 million. I don't need to find $30 million. That's your wish list, not mine. Those are your priorities, not mine on the council.
Yeah.
And so what I'm saying is, even if I had $30 million, I wouldn't allocate it in that way. And I'm not looking for 30, and you're only adding $16 million to the general fund. So I'm not looking for that either. You're giving money to the county. The county can raise their own funds to pay for those things. And you're taking just from the citizens of Reading to benefit the whole county. So it's on our backs again. And so, no, I don't think that this measure is well written, which is my main issue with it. I don't think people are going to get what they want. I think there's
most repeat offenders are arrested in Reading.
Way too many, it comes out to way too many places, and it sparses it out into too small of amounts for some of these things to do the vision that's been cast by those that are for it. And so I don't need to come up with 30 million. I really need to pay for what I have and then figure out a plan to actually reduce the amount of people that are working there. So I have the maximum amount of services for my public with the least amount of people to actually do that. And so we have grown as a bureaucracy. We have grown in the cost of our bureaucracy and the size of our bureaucracy, and we are not getting more for it. We have less people that are living here, and we are not getting more services. We are getting less. And so we need to find that sweet spot. Am I going to go find $30 million in the next year? No, but I'm not looking for $30 million. What I'm looking for is probably between 5 and 8 million to start so that I can afford what I currently have and what I'm responsible for. And then when it comes to infrastructure, I want to renegotiate all of the contracts we have with some of these parks. I mean, Big League Dreams, I found somebody who was willing to invest and create a nonprofit to run that. And the Parks Department said, no, we don't. We want to do it ourselves, and we're not going to give you any grant funding if you take this from us. And that's a real problem to me. They wanted control over that park. And I think this happens often with our people that work in the city is they want control. They've always had control. We're a full service city, but the world has changed. It's 2025. It's very different now. And we can't afford to have this many people and be paying market rate.
Would they be able to cover the turf
and their
replacement?
pensions. I think there's many things that can get us to turf replacement. But the fact is that you won't be able to get to that place if the city's not going to play ball with somebody who's trying to come in and do better for the city and for the people of the city. And so when you have somebody who's come in who has a track record of running these types of facilities who says, I'm willing to put together a plan to do that, and the parks director says, we don't want you to do that.
And the reason why I say this, I know who you're talking about, and I know what you're talking about, and I believe that they could operate at a really good profit, and it would be amazing out there, but I don't think it would cover, not even come close to the turf replacement costs.
Well, right now we can't afford those turf payments. You're going to have to get a loan. So also the amounts that have been allocated. Right. So the amounts, but people need to understand this too. If you say yes to $1.5 million for this, for let's say it's Big League Dreams, they're going to bond on that because that won't get the job done either.
And so
what you're saying is that just give us this little bit of money and then we're going to go into debt. We're going to take on some more bonds. We're going to take on some debt to be able to pay for that.
And that's actually mass out with inflation costs that mass out. But
to you, but the fact of the matter is
historically, just look at it.
Well, but the people think that money actually pays for it, and it doesn't. It's enough that you can bond on it. So what they should be aware of is you're just going to give us enough money that we can go out and go get some more debt to be able to pay for this, which is a bad plan.
We wrote it ongoing as an allocation to Big League Dreams.
For 5 years,
it has to stay in that category.
Yeah,
though.
For 5 years.
But it has to stay in the category.
Well, it has to stay in parks, but they could go do another big park.
So yes. So what I'm saying is that ongoing maintenance and turf replacement is important. Right. If that were to pass, the RFP for an operator could still happen. For someone to come in there, and if you wanted to reduce headcount from parks, you guys could do that. I think they can still do. I don't think one eliminates the other necessarily. So that I also want to go back that you were talking about. Councilmember Audette was talking about certain people getting benefit, and that's who is behind this. And so they're behind this because they are personally benefiting. No organizations were listed in the ordinance to receive these funds. All these funds go to the city. Now, where they reside, if those contracts continue, Advanced Reading, for instance, runs the Civic, but they're not listed in there. They may not be the operator in the future, but Civic Auditorium as an infrastructure project is going to be there into the future. We have that asset as a city. That is a city-owned asset. The rodeo grounds is listed in the ordinance, not the rodeo association, which part of the long-term lease is for the rodeo association to host more city-wide events, more events for the wider community, outdoor arena, different things that would potentially benefit and provide more entertainment down there, because it's kind of our entertainment district right now. So those were really, it's really important to just differentiate. Now, will those organizations benefit? Yes, I think the city of Reading benefits, but I do believe that those organizations benefit because they'll be able to operate better events for the community. So I just don't see that as something that's a real detriment to the measure itself.
It's not, I don't think that necessarily it's a detriment I mean, those people have long-term leases. So they're the ones that are going to be operating it. So they're the ones that benefit. And those are the ones that have invested in this measure. They're the ones that gave the money for it, because you didn't go door to door knocking and talking to citizens. You didn't go ask people their opinions. You paid people to get signatures at grocery stores.
I personally went door to door and got signatures.
Door to door getting their...
You can look at the ballot measures.
How many of the 6,000?
I got about 200
You got
signatures.
about 200 of 6,000. Okay. And how many citizens that were not affiliated with any of the associations gave money? 10?
What's that?
How many? There's 19 donors that are individual donors to this measure. How many of them are not affiliated with one of the organizations that also gave money?
That doesn't matter.
It does matter.
Why?
You can't say, because you're saying it's citizen-led and the citizens
It
are in
is
it.
citizen.
Citizens will say that they're for it if they're actually contributing to it. And the fact is
That's
this
not
is just
true.
a small group of people that are all going to directly benefit.
I would rather people contribute to their local church and to the Good News Rescue Mission than to
well, just
a
remember
political
that when you
command.
run for office again, that you would rather them give to that.
I don't know that I am, but all I'm saying is that I don't think that matters. We didn't go around asking people for money. We wanted to know what people needed and what they wanted.
How would you know
measure.
that? By not going to talk to them?
We did talk to them.
200
No,
of your
I
6,000.
personally did 200. I'm just one member of an entire committee.
So tell me
and
the
volunteers.
percentage. Tell me the percentage of how you guys went door to door.
I don't know what percentage it is of that. Yes, there are a lot of campaigns. Most campaigns like this, with the short amount of time that you're given.
You were not given a short amount of time. You actually had a lot more time.
No, the amount of time that we
wanted. You had the cooperation of
this.
the city council to be able to get this on the measure. They spent the city of Reading spent $500,000 to get this on the ballot this November. They could have spent 30 and it would be on the ballot for next November.
Okay, so we wanted to get it on for this. We wanted it to start in 2026.
Oh, yeah.
So it's very important because, once again, we didn't want to wait
what's the
another
rush?
year or 2 years.
Why not? What's the rush?
Because we're raising our kids now in the city. This is our city now.
But what's the difference between one
more
more year?
I don't believe that you guys are going to make the changes that you're saying to have the impacts on the things that we want right now. With declining population, declining sales tax revenues, you're looking at potentially closing in really critical facilities.
Nobody's looking at closing critical facilities.
How are you going to keep it open?
That conversation never happened until the sales tax measure popped up. Nobody was talking about closing anything.
Okay, so I am
and that is the hyperbolic conversations that are very frustrating to the people who have been paying attention, is that there's no crisis.
Okay, tell me where's the money for the HVAC system if it goes out in the civic?
That HVAC system's been out for 10 years.
No.
They've been talking about that HVAC. That money was dedicated in 2014. And it's been dedicated for the HVAC system since then. They've been talking about that forever.
Okay, so
and you know what they do? They figure it out and make it work, because nothing's been canceled because of that.
So eventually Big League Dreams is going to be a major liability because of the turf replacement.
It is a major liability.
Question. Let's say we've already talked about parks. Let's talk about the police department.
Yeah.
Because everybody is concerned about safety.
Yep.
And, our headlines can look different for some people. So if Measure A doesn't pass beyond budget cuts, what alternative solutions or reform should the city pursue to maintain public safety, et cetera? We don't have to do parks and infrastructures because they kind of already talked about that one. And can Reading address its needs without raising taxes?
Of course it can. I mean, we've added 157 people in the last 4 years. So that's a lot of new employees that we added that we probably don't need. And so talking about downsizing and outsourcing. So I have been going and working on finding out if we went to RFP for different aspects of what we have now to outsource some of the services that we provide to the public. What type of costs are we talking about shifting it to? A lot of times what you'll hear from anybody who opposes this idea of outsourcing is it's going to cost us more. And it might, in the interim, cost more salary rise, but you have to also factor in the benefits and the pensions, which is a massive part about what we pay to all of our employees. So yes, it may look like we're going to pay more in salary, but we are also reducing costs massively on the backside with pensions and benefits. And so we have to be discussing what can we outsource. We have been a full service city where we provide everything, and I think we have to have a conversation of what could we outsource. What could it be? Is it smart for us to outsource fire? Yes, no. Maybe we come to the conclusion that no, that's not a good plan for us. Is it our police department? We can discuss that. Is it going to be people in the parks department? Is it better to outsource are development services, the things that actually fall under our general fund. Are there better ways and better models to be doing business that actually benefit the community? They get better service. Development services is definitely one of those places that I have focused on, and I've gone to talk to different agencies and different organizations that do this and that do the outsourcing for other cities, and what would be more cost efficient, and how would you phase that in, and what would you do? And I think we could, in addition to cutting, downsizing, we've had whole departments be created in the last 4 years. So there's things that we obviously haven't needed before. We probably don't need them now. We can modify in some way. But then also looking to do that outsourcing. I do think that we could get somewhere between that $5 and $8 million gap, and likely more than that. Just so we can stabilize where we can pay for what it is that we currently have. I would want to go a step further, but I think that that's a few years out. I think with the way that things are, with the Trump presidency, with tariffs, with all these sort of new ways that Trump's trying to change things, I think that the economic landscape just looks pretty tenuous right now. And it's hard to know what's going to be what. Are we going to have inflation jump up again? I'm hearing lots of different talk on economic fronts about different sectors that are going to be fundamentally changing. You also have to understand that in California, they want to switch to EVs. Like, we're getting closer and closer to that for 2030 as a goal. So that's going to affect things without the federal subsidy. So there's just a lot kind of going on. It's probably not the time to take more money from people. You have all of our utilities are talking about rate increases, significant rate increases. And so if you have inflation coming up again, if you have all these rate increases, RU is already supplementing the general fund by $12 million. That's ratepayer money that's paying for that supplement to the general fund right now. So all of these costs are going to continue to go up. To add a sales tax on top of that, as though we're going to be able to afford to build all these new things and pay for all of these new people, if we haven't right-sized how much we're paying everybody and knowing the size that's necessary, it means we're going to be right back asking the public for more money or making even more severe cuts within 3 to 4 years. I would rather play it smart, play it safe, cut what we need to cut, go steady for a couple years, and then decide if we're going to pass a sales tax to fix some roads, or if the county wants to pass their own 25-cent sales tax to build a jail, or 50 cents just with a sunset, just with a budget of $100 million or whatever it's going to be to fix it. I think the public would be absolutely willing to do a sales tax if it meant you were going to build something, it was going to fix infrastructure, and it had a sunset.
Well, the public's going to tell
blank
us
checks
next week.
Just for anything, I think is not wise, especially when you know you're in a budget crisis and they've not done the work to actually steady that issue. They're looking for the sales tax to fix it.
So I agree with 85% of what just was said.
He said 85.
I'll take it.
So
Like a win.
Because and here's the thing. Actually, Tenessa and I probably vote on a lot of things very similarly. Like I have a ton of respect for her and the amount of work that she puts in. She's actually a council member that puts in the work, and so I do appreciate that perspective. I think that where I see it differently is we have a city of 60 square miles, almost the same size as San Francisco. We annexed Enterprise and Buckeye in the 70s or whatnot. We have a huge footprint, a lot of infrastructure. We can't afford to let it deteriorate and have more deferred maintenance in the meantime. I hope for all those cuts. I hope for those innovative ideas. When I was on council with Tenessa, I was in full support of those types of things. When I was down at the League of Cities meeting with various vendors, I was also prowling to and fro to find a vendor that could help us with various things. And yes, I think that there's improvements we can make there. When I look at this, we are the county seat, and what that means is we are the hub for our county. And in Northern California, really, we're a hub north of Sacramento in a lot of ways. And so that means is a lot of services and a lot of people utilize that 60 square miles and wear down our roads and use our parks and come here and use our services. And we only get to keep 15% of that right now whenever the money is spent. By the way, not spent on grocery items, not spent on your bills. You're paying sales tax on those goods that are like eating out or buying an electronic good or buying a car. So I think that it's time for a fair share. When we add this extra cent, we're not just sending it to Sacramento and getting it back in crumbs. We send it to Sacramento, they give it back in whole. That full 1 cent gets to stay in the city of Redding to be used on improving that infrastructure because we are the hub. Mm-hmm. everyone's coming through here. I-5 is through here. And I think it's important to allow Reading to not be poverty flats anymore and to be able to move forward. And I don't think that it's just taking from, I think there's a lot of other taxes that I have a hard time with that feel more unconstitutional than a sales tax. Sales tax is a consumption tax. I'm going to pay roughly about $150 to $200 more a year. Others will pay less. Some might pay more, depending on the year. So to me, it's a valuable investment. I'm willing to I pay more for Netflix every year than I will with the impact of Measure A.
Sure counts now.
Yes, there we go.
So because I asked Tenessa kind of if it doesn't pass, what impact do you believe Measure A will have on local businesses and like the cost per residents? I mean, I know you kind of touched on it a little bit in regards to the increase, but like as inflation has risen, the cost of living has risen, just for a lot of people, and just, tariffs, all these things in our economy just kind of being a lot of volatility, I would say. To throw the big bad word tax out feels like this initial knee jerk as a resident to say, no, I'm good. And so I get like in this kind of form, we're having this narrative of like, where's the pros? Like, where's the investment you're making back into the city? So like for somebody who's running a local business and the cost of living for residents, like how do you feel like overall this will impact people? Let's say for the people that are more in the more challenging class.
Yeah, I mean, I think for those who are lower income, they actually spend less on taxable goods in general, because a lot of your money is going to your rent and your bills and kind of those baseline things. Now, if you're eating out a lot, like groceries aren't taxed. So if you're eating out a lot, you're going to probably feel a little bit more. I was talking to somebody today and we were kind of evaluating like, okay, out of your budget on your YNAB, you need a budget. You're looking at your YNAB. How many of those categories are taxed, and everyone would have to figure that out for themselves. Thereabouts, if you take your total, income, and it's probably about 22% to 28% of your spend is going to be taxable. I mean, it's a real rough number. You have to kind of evaluate it. But I think that for low-income people or fixed-income people, it's going to impact a lot less than those who, I think it'll impact people who are buying a lot of supplies from Reading or buying a lot of vehicles out of Reading. You're probably going to feel it more, probably a disproportionate level. I think so. I don't think that there's zero downsides, but I think the upside is that if you're growing your business here, this investment into our community, into our infrastructure, into the entertainment. We're talking about retention of employees. There have been more people moving out of California. Reading has so much going for it that some of this infrastructure, our quality of life, our public safety, even the partnership with the sheriff's office, like there are just these problems we keep talking about and we're never solving them. And so, this is just a step in the right direction. It doesn't solve everything. And I do think in the end, when you look at the Amazons or those who are looking at our area as a potential growth hub, where people and employees would want to move and raise their families here, all of this is going to matter. How it feels. People make decisions emotionally. So when they're driving down the street and they see those who have mental health issues not being cared for in a mental health facility, when they see those who are homeless not in a homeless facility, when they see public safety, they don't see officers around, and the presence of that, it changes your whole outlook on a city. If they see a park that's not maintained, it's going to have an impact. So I think that's really how I see it. And for most people, it's going to be somewhere around that $150 a year mark.
Before we wrap up, so the last question, and kind of just key takeaway notes. Obviously, Measure A has had allocations. If you talk about 12% here, 12% there, and everything like that. And I know in reading a lot of the Facebook comments, some people just don't like where it's being allocated. They wish it was being allocated better here.
Yeah.
Which you're never going to be able to please every single person. Sitting on city council, like what do you see as the most urgent budget and service challenges facing Reading today? And how specifically for you would Measure A fail to address these issues?
Well, I think there's just a fundamental difference of philosophy when it comes to growth. I think what grows your city is bringing jobs. is business. If businesses grow, if we have things like we can bring Amazons and we can bring, businesses to Stillwater, if we can make it attractive. And by the way, a 7.25 sales tax is actually a selling feature. The fact that our sales tax is so low, businesses try to recruit other people by saying like the cost of living here, because that's what it goes to. It's cost of living. And we have the lowest cost of living here because we have such a low sales tax. And so that's a real selling feature. And so I don't want to grow my city by growing government. I want to grow my city by growing businesses, by growing the pocketbooks of the people living in it. And a sales tax doesn't do that. It does the opposite of that. It says, business is not my focus and you consumer is not my focus. It's growing government. And so government can provide this to you and government can give this to you. And the fact is, if we actually focus on growing our businesses, then sales tax costs will go, our intake will come up because people are actually spending that money at restaurants and they have disposable income. And that's what we're talking about here. If you increase the sales tax, you reduce your disposable income. And I don't want to do that. I want to grow my city. I want to grow businesses. I want more jobs. I don't want a bigger government. Mm-hmm. And I think Reading butts into this all the time because that's how they feel. They're like, no, we don't want government to just get bigger and bigger by taking more from those of us that are here. Let's just grow the pie. Let's get more businesses to come here and offer more jobs. Like an Amazon is a great thing. I mean, that's 100 more jobs to the area. That is also going to grow the sales tax. That's a great idea though. So we will see an increase of sales tax because of that, not because we passed Measure A. And so I'm not over here just saying like, no growth, no government, everything's bad. It's like, no, it's actually just not the time for that. And the way that it was allocated, I think also the public is rejecting that. They're saying, no, those are not my priorities. That's not what I want to see increases on. And the only thing that I can hear as what people agree on is streets. And I say to that, then do an infrastructure tax where it's one thing, it's 25 cents increase and it sunsets in 10 years and we actually get our money towards the streets. And that actually goes towards fixing in whatever way is the correct way that people feel the streets could be fixed. So I think there are other alternatives to that. But that is my philosophy. My philosophy is not that I need government to be bigger in order for us to get what we want as a city. My philosophy is I would rather see businesses come here. I'd rather see businesses be successful. We have the public market that's about to open. And when we are taking more of people's disposable income with the sales tax increase, that's less of a chance that public market is going to do well because it is purely off of disposable income. Everything there will be taxed. And so when you want more people to go to the Civic and you want more people to go to the rodeo, then those are all luxury type things. That's all disposable income. And we would be making that more expensive by adding the sales tax measure. So this just goes against philosophically what I believe is what you grow, how you grow an area.
If a low sales tax was the thing to grow cities and bring jobs here, we already have it. That's not actually the only thing that matters for companies evaluating when to move and grow their company somewhere. Low sales tax has already been here and we haven't grown. So we have to be thinking differently and say, what else do we need to do? We can't have government fail its obligation on infrastructure and public safety and hope that people just keep growing their businesses here. I think that we have to have both. We have to all do our part.
Well, I disagree that we have failed. I think we have an opportunity right now. This council didn't take that opportunity. Instead, they want a sales tax. But the moment that this doesn't pass, you're going to see some movement. You're going to see some change. And Frito-Lay and Amazon and all these other places that have just recently invested in Stillwater, we're going to reap the benefits of that. That's coming. That will increase our sales tax. That will increase the revenues that are coming in here. They just haven't happened yet. No, 100 jobs here and more people working there or coming from out of the area to fill those jobs will increase consumption in the area. So there are going to be some changes. There's going to be some growth. So that is still coming. And those incentives have existed for a while. It's just taken a while to get there. But the idea that Reading is not going to be successful if this measure doesn't pass, I reject wholeheartedly. We are going to be successful. We are resilient. The last time that we didn't pass the sales tax, they told us that, we would lose all of our cops and everything else. And now the cops are paid better than they've ever been paid. And we are figuring out ways and alternatives and things to do. We will always figure out a way to be successful in Reading. That's who we are.
I do want to say that we have done the most with the least. And I do think that we've done really well with the, I don't think that every decision's been perfect. We can talk about raises, talk about all this stuff, but I do think that we have done a really good job by and large with how big our city is to maintain it the best we can with that. I do give props to our public works department. I give props to our police department and being able to have, beat officers have to cover 60 square miles. I mean, that's insane, but we're doing the best we can. And I think that, I think it's just that we want to do better. We want better as a community. And there are people who are going to vote yes for it because of that. And there will be people that vote no for other reasons. So I guess the question is, though, if it doesn't pass or if it does pass, what does the future of Reading look like?
Wow, you brought me to my last question. No, I would say this has been very helpful. I mean, if I could summarize it best for those that have sat through this and listened to this, it's yours is just the transparency of like where money is actually being allocated towards. And yours is not so much taking the risk, but understanding and believing that there has been an allocation purely dedicated to certain funds to improve it so that we attract more people. And you're willing to take the risk of an increased budget, and you're not willing to take or increase sales tax, and you're not willing to take the increased sales tax until the system has been fixed.
I don't think that you grow your economy by having your government be bigger. I actually think the opposite happens.
Government being bigger means police and fire,
we need
though,
more
right?
of the private sector to be successful. And I think I can absolutely fix the police budget and get the exact just what we need between police and fire and looking at those budgets, and by talking to those directors, I think we could actually come up with a something that actually meets all the needs of the public without ever having to pass a tax. So personally, I don't think that that's a crisis at all. I think the budget crisis we have right now is that we have too many personnel and we're paying them too much. That's the issue we have. We have to correct that. If we can correct that, we're not in a crisis at all. And then if you want to talk about the future, I think we need to play out what we have right now, the growth that we have at Stillwater, what that's going to look like, and attracting more businesses to do business here, because that's the right way to grow a city. It's not just by making government bigger.
So where do you see Reading being next year if Measure 8 does pass?
Well, I mean, I will be battling that we still right-size the government. Mm-hmm. So just because you have more money for it doesn't mean it should be spent by just adding. I think we really do have to do a deep dive. I just don't think that this council has any appetite to do the work. And unfortunately, what you're going to have is what you've always had, is they're just going to add bodies. Yeah. And so then you're just going to run into the same problem that you've run in before. And as much as you want them to do something different, people do what they have to do. Often, they do what's the easiest thing to do. And I've seen it. I've just seen, so everybody will get raises again. All of these contracts, all these MOUs are coming up again. Everybody will get an increase. So the 20, 30, 40% increases will just continue to grow. You're going to continue to see increase.
How do you know that will happen?
It already has happened.
What, I mean, this year, since all this has happened, they are voting on increases this year?
So the mechanism by which that is, I'm just saying, this is my opinion.
Oh, okay.
And I can't legally tell you what's true or not true, but I can give you my opinion. And my opinion is that there is no appetite to do less. And so everybody is waiting. All the negotiations, all that stuff is just on hold until to see if it passes.
And I'm not on council, so I don't have the same Brown Act issues, but that's not what I've heard. And so,
well, you know what? No, this is good. This is good. So you know what I would say is those people that said that that's not true, open closed session. I'll make a motion at the next council meeting to open closed session on any negotiations that we've had and any votes that we've made when it comes to giving raises. I will, and you can support me in that, and you can have the other council members agree to open closed session to see what's true.
Yeah, I mean,
salaries.
Yes, on salary.
So that's the thing. So if it passes, I mean, I've considered that as well. So if the public says, no, we don't care, they can have all the raises that they want, or yes, no, we don't want all the raises, or whatever their position is, but they still want Measure A, then I think we have to, I'm going to try to do my very best that we don't just add more bodies and that we don't just give everybody more raises.
So you're glad we didn't do a maintenance of effort then, right? So that you can make those changes?
I'm not glad of anything. I think my only opposition to the fact that you didn't do that is that it's not being sold that way. So I'm talking about a marketing issue with you. So there's a marketing issue as by telling people they're guaranteed, not anymore, but you started this whole thing. You started this, so don't back out of it now.
No, I'm just saying I'm not marketing.
But you, well, but you've spoken about this. And so the marketing effort is you have to do this or everything's going to be closed and you have to add all of these bodies and you're just going to get more stuff. And I just don't think that's true.
I actually publicly came out that the council members would have to add a maintenance of effort for public safety if they want that.
No, but the marketing of this is, and you can go read it on the ballots and you can go read it everywhere, is that you're going to get more cops, you're going to get more fire, you're going to get another fire department.
Because we trust that you won't change that budget. We trust that you won't change that budget.
I don't want 20 more cops. I don't need 20 more cops.
Great,
I think it's irresponsible to do. I'm one person.
Well, what we want is we wanted 12% to go to police. And that's fine. That's what we wanted.
But it supplants. So we don't have to spend it there. And that's the issue.
And
the issue is
we
that
vote you in. I voted for you. So what I'm saying is
one person, and one out of four. And what we have found is that you have 4 people unwilling to do anything different. And this is the issue.
I don't think that's true.
Well, we've seen it.
I have seen it. And I think that you guys can figure this out. I think that you can.
I'll give you the question to wrap it up. If Measure A, you were 4. If Measure A doesn't pass, and tomorrow or next week, we obviously don't have an increase in sales. So just how do you hope to envision that the city council members, the city itself will collaborate together to not be in this, how Tenessa is describing this kind of big doom of things are going to shut down, kind of marketing war?
Well, if I were to look at it strictly through what was said here, and I know Tenessa, you're really good at painting kind of the picture of what is from your vantage point. And if I were to really buy into the dystopian novel, and what I mean by that is it's this other world that I don't see the world exactly that way.
I don't think anything's going to close. I don't think anything's going to be broken.
No, but what I'm actually saying,
how is that dystopian?
No, what I mean is that it is this world where it says that there's no other council members but me that are going to vote for the right things. And what I'm saying is because of that, if this doesn't pass, then I would have to start looking at how do we as citizens, in order to get movement quicker, do we need to change the structure of our government from general law to charter in order to hold a strong mayor accountable to a vision and a budget so that we can see changes quicker. So that way we can, So I'm saying is that that's the only way that we would be able to see if all of these ideas would actually make sense and pencil out.
So that's pretty extreme, that you'd have to change your entire form of government
in
order to survive. I mean, I just find that to be the most extreme thing I've ever heard.
We could survive.
I don't think I can get 2 more votes. And you think we have to change the entire system of government, and that's reasonable.
No, and I didn't say in order to survive. I didn't say in order to survive. I said in order to thrive.
It's the only option. And we are going to thrive. We are going to thrive.
Okay.
It's not going to pass.
Do you believe we're thriving right now?
I do think that we're thriving right now in ways. And I think that here's a part of thriving. It doesn't mean that there is exponential growth. It means that you have the potential to do it. And like a newborn baby, they may not be double their size yet, but we know that they're thriving if they're hitting the mark. And the fact is that if we didn't have currently the spending that we have been having, if we right-sized our government, we would be at a much better place to decide and to discover what it is that we actually want to prioritize our budget on. But that hasn't happened. They kept the same level of spending. They inflated the amount of revenues to create a balanced budget. It's inaccurate. And what's going to happen when this does pass or doesn't pass is the budget's going to be completely changed. That's going to happen irregardless because this was a stopgap, which is what I object to, is a stopgap to make it look like there wasn't a budget crisis.
The reason why I said what I said is because you said that there's no one else that will go along with your plan.
So far for what you're talking about is to guarantee that money only is new spending. Right? I don't think that we have the votes for that. So if you get that, and by the way, I don't agree that it needs to be 20 new cops.
Great. I didn't say that. We didn't say 20 new cops.
I know, but other council members do. They get out there on the news and they say, hey, vote for this, you're going to get 20 more cops. Don't you want 20 more cops? Don't you want every single street to be paved?
We just want 12% to go to police.
Right. So you can say that. But when you have council members that are on the news saying something different, that's what I'm contending with. So you can have all the best intentions in the world. And I believe you, Josh. I've known you a long time. I believe what you're saying. And I believe you believe what you're saying. That does not mean that translates into the rest of the people that are on the council who I serve with in closed session, privately, on the dais. I'm with them all the time in their decision making and what they're saying on the news, and being whatever it is, it's a small town. And if I had faith that they would have some discipline and do the work to figure out the right answer, not just what staff is going to tell them, but weighing lots of different sides of this, then we'd be having a different conversation, but we're not. And the way that it was written and all of the different handouts that it does, I don't think it addresses the priorities or the importance of where spending needs to happen for this budget. So I do not think that if you are going to raise 30 million should have gone to the general fund, but it doesn't. 16 million goes to the general fund. And so that also is an allocation that I don't agree with. I don't agree with us supplementing the sheriff's budget when they have their own money and reserves and means of raising their funding, that it falls on the back of Reading again, and that we pay the lion's share of that money, just the residents of Reading, when all of the county is going to benefit, just puts another burden on the people that are living within Reading. And so when it comes to all of these layers and all of these things, I don't think that the council, this current council in its iteration, has the will to do much.
Well, I also think at the end of the day, like, there's obviously many flaws in the system, and obviously many ways to like articulate and see like where things could fix or where we had opportunities to grab money and where we didn't and whatnot. Obviously, Measure A is kind of what feels like the catapult for some people to try to potentially plug the hole, catch up. And then also for you, where it feels like it's why rush something when there could be, different structures and systems fixed. So I think at the end of the day, like, your guys' viewpoint is so uniquely seen from different seats that you have at the table, and seats that you've had involved with the city. And I think it gives different perspectives to, again, what's important to you, how do we get this job done? At the end of the day, like, we all can sit here and we can agree that we love Reading. Yeah. We can all sit here and say that we want Reading to be a better space and a better place for your family, your grandkids, everybody. And obviously, money is always going to be the greed of everything. People want more money to do, more things or potentially take more. And you have people advocating like yourself on the city council where it feels like you're against, four is against you and you're the only lone fish out there. And, the people applaud your advocacy for it. And then there's people that obviously see your perspective of like the need overall for what feels like this could maybe give Reading a little bit of a shining, brighter future for people moving and growing and developing our city. So at the end of the day, like, I super appreciate you guys sitting down and like sharing your thoughts and discussion. I know we could probably sit here for like 3-4 hours and I'd probably be like, okay. But before closing out, and thank you obviously because I've listened, if there's anything that you could wrap up for your position in a 60 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, I love Reading, and I think Reading is going to be successful. That's just the bottom line. And we have people coming here every single day that have vision, that have dreams. And this is the place to bring dreams and to watch them grow. You can see any new business that comes into town. People rally around, they're excited. And if that business is great, it's successful. That's just how it is here. We're a great incubator of ideas, and we give everybody the chance to be awesome. And I think that's what's going to continue to happen. And that type of growth increases the income to the government, because when a business does well, the city of Reading does well. And that's the type of income I want to see happen. It's the outgrowth of a great business, of people moving here, of you raising your family and buying cleats and gloves and moving through the system and then coming into, and just the growth of having a family, or if you're retired here, whatever it is, whatever stage of life you're in, your success and you consuming here in this area and being part of that growth is the type of growth that the city should have. And the city government and its infrastructure should reflect the success of the people, so that we benefit each other and that we strive for each other's success.
Right.
And so that's the type of success I want to see. I don't want to be onerous to the people. I don't want to keep taxing them and saying, well, the most highly paid people in all of Reading work in the city of Reading. When we have people making more than a majority of the people that here, when the average, salary of a city of Reading workers over $100,000. That's crazy. We can't afford that. That's over the median income. And really the people that are the poorest in our community are like, something's got to give. And I don't want to be the one that gives to that.
Right.
And so it has to be right sized.
Yeah.
They took some risks. They made some projections. Okay, fine. They got it wrong. Let's just fix it. But asking for more money to maintain that bad decision is not the people's fault, and nor should they bear the burden of that. And so I don't think it's the right time to add a sales tax, but I want to see Reading succeed in all that it does. And I am going to work every day and continue to fight that that's what we see and that we are successful, whether it passes or doesn't pass. I'm going to work just as hard to make sure that people continue to dream and they continue to privately take risks, and that the city of Reading continues to provide the infrastructure for them to succeed.
60-ish seconds are on the clock for you.
Well, she had like 120 seconds. Yeah. I love Reading as well. And that's why this has been really hard, because I would fight against almost any other tax that would come across my plate. But I think that this is different. This is where we live. I don't disagree that we should do the work. I hope that all of our elected officials will do the work to find improvements, to right the ship, as it's been said, to do all that. I just think that there's a cost to not doing anything. There's a hidden tax. There's an invisible tax when we don't have written into our policy and our budget ongoing wildfire mitigation. And you're in real estate. Fire premiums are a real thing around here. Are we doing things on infrastructure and public safety that are helping that invisible tax? Are we just going to, we're hoping for more grants from whether it's a nonprofit foundation or from the state of California, but we're just begging. We the people want lower insurance premiums.
Yeah.
There's a hidden cost to not having public safety at the proper levels. We can argue about what those are, but there's a hidden cost, and we want to make sure that there's a minimum there, and that those additional officers, we need to see park rangers, we need to see downtown bike parks, we need to see our community service officers doing what they do, and the neighborhood police unit. We need all of those to help us. But can improvements be made? Absolutely. I hope that's what the council members will find. But I think that there's a cost to, we don't know, not most council members have not worked in big businesses and had a lot of employees and worked around larger companies and understood the analytics that go into why should we choose Reading or another city, or grow there or not grow there. And quality of life is absolutely a factor. And so for me, we need to evaluate all the hidden costs. For me, $150 to help plug and provide ongoing maintenance for parks that a lot of families use seems like it's worth it. I hope we don't get ourselves in that situation again, but I do think that it's a worthwhile investment. So if this doesn't pass, I'm still going to be here. I don't know if my kids will move back here, but I know that I'll still be here because I love Reading. I've chosen Reading, at least for the time being, and we've invested deeply into the community, and we love the people here. I'll be working with the next council members and whoever else to try and come alongside and probably alongside Tenessa from time to time to see, hey, what can we do in the community to make it better, to advocate for the next thing that could just improve the city. If it passes, I'll be doing the same thing. This is not a one size fits all. This isn't going to fix everything. So we're going to keep improving. There's always going to be places for improvement. There's no way you have 900 employees in the budget that we have and the county that we have that we're going to all of a sudden just not ever have problems again to solve. There's going to be plenty. And, hopefully what I want is that the city is great enough that my kids want to solve the next generation's problems, and we can set them up well for that.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you guys for your time. Thank you for putting me through my first political debate. No. I might have survived. My Oura ring probably says I'm very stressed. But this has been super insightful. I appreciate the respect, just like the insight that you guys have. Obviously, I don't come from a lot of background sitting in these council meetings. I obviously am a business owner here, born, raised here, lived here my whole life. Invite people to move to Reading, love Reading, and also just want to pull off off the lens this episode and kind of show that Reading isn't perfect. We got, problems, but we also have great people with big voices trying to create solutions in different aspects of how that looks. And so I appreciate your time. So if you are a citizen of Reading, live in Reading, don't forget to vote. And we'll see how everything pans out next week. But as always, thanks so much for tuning into this week's special episode of Rooted in Reading. We'll catch you next week.